Reagan for putting together this agenda and getting it posted online. And all of those people out there and
All of the world.
in the big world of the internets. First item on our agenda is the review and approval of the minutes from June, and those are on the backside of our printed agenda. Do you guys want to take a minute, just review what we've got here?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Dan and second by Garrett to accept the minutes of the June meeting. All those in favor? All right, the ayes have it. Unanimous. Okay, so next on our agenda is item number 3, the TIF amendment discussion. Reagan, you want to lead us through that?
Sure. So as all of you have just reviewed the minutes, as you recall, we were talking about doing an amendment for your current TIF district. And as part of that, we surveyed the public, I think probably for 2 reasons. One, to kind of raise awareness and get buy-in about the TIF district for residents and kind of stir up some conversation. I did have some conversations with people about kind of helping them better understand how the TIF district works, which was, I think, a nice outcome. Always nice to be able to educate people. And as a result, we put out some projects, both ones that you're already allowed to spend money in categories where you're already allowed to spend money per your current TIF district, and also maybe some opportunities that we saw where you don't have permission from the state to spend money at this time, but you could. And so we talked about some of the popular public expenditure ideas included recreational trails, certain environmental protection projects specific to lakes, and I'll get some more clarification from DECD as to what specifically how that would apply to Monmouth, but that is an expenditure that can be used. Business facade improvement in the downtown area which is something you already do, so that the public appreciated that. Public water extension to North Monmouth, and that was kind of our reach possible expenditure in some way having TIF revenues help with water and sewer expansion to North Monmouth. And then a portion of the cost associated with fire equipment for the fire department, which again, the TIF statute allows, because obviously this whole TIF district is based upon a CMP substation, which conceivably, if anything happened with that, the fire department would be quite responsible for that. So that's how we justify putting TIF revenues in for that type of, or getting TIF revenues to the fire department for certain expenditures. So that's what the public picked out. And I think we talked last time we met about how those seem to be very reasonable expenditures that are kind of in line with what would make sense for Monmouth, and maybe something that I or some of us together would come up with as good ideas to use TIF revenues. Let me see. So where are we? So at that point, we were talking about potentially doing a TIF amendment to try to put some of the money in categories where we could actually spend it at the municipal level, because we.
That just sounded funny. I'm sorry. It was like funny. No, I'm sorry. No. I didn't. I wasn't laughing. It was just funny. It was like, now we're trying to do it so we could spend it. And it's
just kind of justify, and I think Kent raised a good point, being responsive to the public and helping them understand that, okay, we've heard from you, now we're going to allocate this so that we can spend it in ways where so might make it a little bit more of a popular idea. The issue that we've run into is, and in part, one is that the public water extension to North Monmouth, I've talked to DECD, and long story short, there really needs to be right now, under current law, there really needs to be a business function. So for example, if we were having a business that was moving to North Monmouth and they needed water and sewer, that would be a justification for us to use TIF revenues to help move that water and sewer out to even just that business, which of course would help Monmouth in that then it would be a lot cheaper for you to kind of move it around to other
How about an
homes.
existing business?
Well, and so we were trying to kind of brainstorm what business necessitates water, water and sewer out in North Monmouth. And so we were having a hard time coming up with
Could it be an existing business that is looking to expand?
especially if they were looking to expand. Yeah.
And sorry, I may be missing something, but this is related to the PFAS, right?
Well, I think
Potential exposure in that area, right? The chemicals in the water.
So part of the impetus, part of the thinking behind this is that we've got about 250 families out there that are all served by wells that are contaminated.
Has that
Um,
study been done?
It's in progress,
Okay.
not complete. We've made some progress with additional testing that's being done by Tex Tech and with additional sort of temporary bottled water service being provided for free by Tex Tech. So it's not a crisis, but it's definitely a significant impact to that neighborhood.
And so, Dan, to answer your question, I guess, there's a couple of things that play here. One is the state going to respond and help municipalities who are being affected with the PFAS to, allocate funds. So are there other ways that this could get paid for besides us trying to figure out how to do it with TIF revenues? Two, if we were to try and finagle it with a business like Tex Tech, would that get us far enough out so that it wouldn't be as burdensome on the town to, again, then extend it to all of the other residences out there? And we just don't have those numbers yet. I mean, Ken alluded to the fact that there's a study going on, and that's why we kind of put this on hold, because we wanted to get the information first, obviously. So that's where we are with that. And I think as time goes on in the next, and I mean, time meaning the next couple of months, we'll be able to have a much better sense of what we might be able to do. But so at this point, we're just kind of in a holding pattern for that.
So just for clarification and for the record, so that everyone gets to hear it. The under current state statute, the Economic Development Commission of the State of Maine would not allow us to simply use a contaminated aquifer as a justification for expending TIF revenue. So they wouldn't allow us to put that into our TIF description and guidelines for, that is not a current justification. Could that change statutorily? Sure. But it would require a change in law.
What about like items 1 and 2 in the survey here, like trail creation or environmental protection projects? Would they all also have to be directly related to a business for the money to be expended upon them? So it's
No.
just water for some reason is?
It's the trail extension, for example, and what was the second one?
environmental protection projects specific to.
Right, so there are different categories in which TIF revenues can be spent. In that category that those two would be in, they're talking about broader economic development improvements for the town. In other words, people are going to, come here to use the trails, or it improves the quality of life, or it improves tourism. That's how they justify that in the economic development bucket.
Okay.
For water and sewer extension, and for our purposes, really for people's residences.
Right.
The way the statute is written is that you're getting these tax dollars from commercial uses. The money that's in the TIF district is from a commercial use, so they want it to be used for
Okay.
economic development and commercial uses. That's just,
And then also the money, does all the money have to be spent within the TIF district,
no, and that's why
except for the water? Sounds like it needs to be within the TIF district.
it can be, it can be outside of the TIF district if it's directly related to the TIF district. So if example, this were a TIF district here, and
Yep.
there was a lot of traffic that resulted from a development here.
Yep.
You could put in a traffic light there because it's being justified by this development.
Okay.
So there's a lot of little nuancy
Yep.
things, but they're good questions because it's there's a lot of different things to it.
Yeah.
So
Seems like having drinkable water would be a reason to move to Monmouth.
you would think that, in terms of a economic incentive, that might be a good thing, but that's not how the statute's written, right?
And no, and sorry, just to clarify on the PFAS, we don't know what caused this, or,
That is part of the study. My understanding is that they are able to determine based on the type of chemicals that they would be detecting, that they can figure out the likely source
okay, so
based on,
where I'm going with that is it Tex Tech? I mean, they're there,
we don't know that for
yeah,
sure.
so maybe before we start brainstorming ideas to give them TIF money, we make sure that they weren't the cause.
Well, and even if they were
So I'm
though,
just saying, wait for the study.
Yeah. Hypothetically, even if they were, this was probably contamination from about 1950 or 1960. And again, going down that hypothetical game, what was known at that time was completely different than what we know right now.
Or at least known by businesses of the scale of Tex Tech, as opposed to like, Dow, DuPont, and the ones who actually made the
Exactly.
stuff that had studies saying that it was
Exactly.
not good.
I mean, what I think is important is, and for everyone to understand, is that today's Tex Tech is being extremely gracious in allowing free testing for anyone who requests it in the neighborhood that is adjacent to a contaminated well. And when a well is determined to be contaminated, they're providing free drinking water. And there's no admission or denial of responsibility in that. They're just doing it because they're doing it. And the reality, I just want to say, the reality of the people who live in that neighborhood, a very large portion of them have jobs at Tex Tech. So it's a complicated situation.
As most things are.
Yep.
So I wanted to update you on that, and for that reason, I think it makes sense to we're going to be working on an amendment. You have to vote on an amendment for Monmouth, the way that they do it, election, right? Yeah, so
A town meeting.
town meeting or
Town
election. So the next town meeting that we could get something on the ballot and go through the process would be June. So I think that we plan to shoot for this for June of 23 and have all of our new expenditure items in place and the amendment completed. And if we feel we need to, doing some public education about kind of what we're doing and why this is a good thing for the town and et cetera. So that kind of gives us some lead time to do that. But I wanted to update all of you about kind of where we were and where we were going with it.
So my understanding is that there's a 60-day advanced notice that we would need if town meeting is in
Yes.
June.
Yes, right,
And we would need to have something finalized 60 days in advance
right. So that would be
Of that.
mid-April, right?
of that election.
Yes,
And so that means we need to get started on it right away in order for it to be, crystal clear by that time.
yes. And there are some stipulations in terms of what we need to do, including a public hearing and other requirements to make sure that the TIF amendment is valid. So yes, we'll timeline all that out and make sure that we hit that April deadline. So that was just an update for everyone about the TIF district. And I think, again, I think the survey was a really good thing and I think it will work out. That education will work out for us and to our advantage going forward.
Also, since we last met, the select board has set the mill rate for the town and sort of in a retroactive way, set the budget for the funds that are set aside for the TIF for this year. And originally, the funding was budgeted at $120,000. This year, because of the CMP revaluation, I think that got bumped up to 135 and change, something like that, somewhere in that ballpark. So there's some additional funding that we're adding in. Reagan, do you know what the balance is of our, or maybe you know this one, Doug, what the balance is of our TIF? Because when TIF funds are not expended, they're set aside in a reserve fund.
My head either.
Yeah, so that might be a question that we could ask of the town manager for our next meeting. Yeah, to find out what it is that we've accumulated over time.
So just, I'm sure you guys already talked about this, but
Sure.
that's how much money like per year the town receives?
That's correct.
Okay, and it just accrues somewhere in an account?
Exactly.
Okay.
If it's not expended. Now, there are some long-term expenditures that have been allocated to that account. One of them, I mean, a lot of the sidewalk construction that's been happening around town has been borrowed money that is paid for from the TIF account. So we borrow at 2 or 3%, pay for the sidewalk from, by borrowing that money, and then the TIF fund pays the mortgage essentially. I think they're typically like 10-year timeframe borrowings. And the TIF fund is funding those. So there is some outgoing money from the TIF account for some important infrastructure construction.
And essentially, when the TIF district dissolves, all of that money needs to have been spent. But up until that point, you can let it stay there or accrue, but once the TIF district is dissolved, that money needs to have already been
We're
spent.
about halfway right now.
Well,
Jog my memory, was there a way we could amend it to extend it?
bingo.
This is a 30-year TIF district. Is it 20 years? It's a 20-year TIF district. So yes.
So you
I
can go
think that would
30,
be one
right?
of the recommendations that we would want to consider is to extend it to its full capability.
When does it expire?
20 years from 2013.
So it'll be 10 years, so we'll be halfway next year.
Within the current,
9
in
years.
the current state, yeah.
I want to say we got a balance of several hundred thousand.
Yeah, it's a decent balance, definitely.
figure out how to use that.
Yes.
All right, if there are no other questions about that, I'm done with that. Update.
I just wanted to add a couple of things about some of the recreational trail creation and maintenance of that. And since the survey, I've had a lot of conversations with townsfolk about trail creation that serves a lot of different purposes. So not just for hiking, but for skiing and snowshoeing, snowmobiling, ATVs, so multi-purpose trail creation is, I mean, my sense is that if we're looking at educating folks about exactly how we're spending this money, that we want as many allies as possible, and that we want as broad a beneficiary of the new thing that we create, and that we don't want it to be super narrow in terms of who gets to use the trail, for example. So multi-purpose trails, I think, is a good way to go if we're looking at creating something new.
So I also sit on the Conservation Commission in town, and one of our top priorities is creating a trail network in town. Along with preservation of open space. So anyway,
Do you know if there's any, I mean, so creating a trail network, is there any type of master plan that people are thinking might get created for a trail and planning or anything like that?
no, I mean, we have this grand scheme of somehow, tying, kind of South Monmouth to the rest of the town to start with, just because we're looking at a map, that's where it's a lot of larger parcels of land,
There's a trail currently, the snowmobile trail.
Right, and there's already, right,
It's 10 miles to
right.
Clemento's farm.
Right, and then there's also the Woodbury Bird Sanctuary over there, which has public trails, although they are just walking trails. So that, but that is not going anywhere. We also don't have any, we don't have any money. The commission, that is, so.
Well,
And I'm going to chime in too, because we had talked about, I had approached Joel Milano Stott about doing a trail behind Cumston. That is a 2.7 acre parcel of land. And a good portion of from that, the back parking lot to the railroad. There could be, we actually walked it one day, and there could be a nice loop just on what it already belongs to Cumston Hall. The property which is next to the hall has basically the same thing. So there's a strip of woods that is basically in the same condition that goes all the way back there. So, that might be an instance where there could be easements or something like that arranged with people back there. But the one at Cumston Hall will just be a loop. And we had talked about it, and, Joel had basically said that it should be something that comes back to the Cumston Hall space rather than through the commission. And that's something that the Friends of Cumston Hall are going to try to look at, especially if we're having that repaving done. And we had a rough estimate from a company that does Fournier's Tree Service to get in there and clean up the stuff laying down and the standing dead. But that would be stuff that TIF money could pay for. So that's why we, knowing and being a part of this committee, right?
So as long as you don't get rid of that crypt, right? I heard that went well.
Like a passing gas in a house of worship. Yes, it was. And that's, that's a conversation we'll continue to have.
Yeah.
So I'm also wondering if, obviously the revenues would need to be allocated, but recreational trail creation, again, could talk about some sort of plan creation around trails in, you know, and so whether it's in partnership with the commission or what have you, but just, again, trying to map this out, you know, and which makes a whole lot more sense than people just kind of, you know, sitting on a map.
Would that be something that you could say, like you could farm out to like KLT?
Yeah.
And because I know, you know, they do a lot of geo mapping and they have the geo mapping guy and so they do a lot of that, but that might be something that would be what you're talking about, is to sort of basically consult with someone who is a trail,
Right.
you know, sort of like a study before you actually implement, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha,
That
gotcha.
would be my recommendation.
Oh, I love that.
And that would, you know, again, allow us to use the TIF revenues to develop that instead of,
Reinventing the wheel.
right, or, you know, trying to have people try and pound their heads against the wall, trying to figure out what would.
Well, and
Good
also
idea.
you're doing something like that also brings in a level of transparency from someone who's not part of the town. That, you know, kind of. I mean, any small town, you want to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. So having an objective third party
Yeah.
involved.
Yep.
Makes it easier to say, well, you know, this is just the best solution. And yeah, it involves some people. But this is the recommendation that comes from our expert.
Well, it's kind of hard to argue if that's what people overwhelmingly had voted in.
Right.
You know, and it does seem that way. I know for a fact that, and I've seen them, Kennebec Land Trust has a map of each town.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a heat map of where trails are and things like that. If I did some digging, I could probably find it, but I know that it gives you, you know, there's a lot of information to be mined in that. And, you know, I would say they would probably be a very good resource to use.
You know,
Feels good.
the
Feels
other,
good.
the other thing that I think is really important about the Cumston Hall location is that it's super accessible. Like,
Absolutely.
it's within walking distance of
Airtime.
20% of the town.
It's
I mean,
perfect.
You want people to get outside and exercise.
Absolutely.
and put
Play
it-
outside.
And to put the trail system to work.
Well, and also for the library, they could do a story walk there. They already do one at Whittier's,
Right.
but that's an off-site of
Yeah,
the
you gotta go
library
there.
thing.
You gotta drive.
And so, not that there's a, you know, we're thankful certainly, but you'd think that something right in the backyard, and just also just having, you know, an added bonus.
Kennebec Land Trust.
Yeah,
It's got all the trails right on it.
There you go.
yeah. They're very good. But that, yeah, absolutely right. And I encourage that. We want that. We want it to be kind of a central location. So I'm down.
Great.
All right, what's next on our agenda?
We're gonna talk about the doohickey
The
survey. You want to do the doohickey now?
The business.
The
director.
business directory.
Business directory.
Yeah.
Next
Ladies
on our
and gentlemen, welcome to the Monmouth Business Directory. I have been working, I made this a while back and I think I've missed a few meetings, blah, 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 get back and forth, but we certainly can bring this to the forefront. Right now, what I did, and you have done it, and you have done it. I don't know if anyone else has done it, but we have 8 entries for the business directory. That I think there's a couple things. First of all, I created this and we kind of were like, do you think this will work? And it seems like people are putting stuff in and they once they get to it, they can do it, but it needs to be front and center on the website. And if you guys want to do that, if we can I don't know if because I can do that tonight and put it right on the front page. And that way, when people go to the website, they can see it. We can start to direct people there, either with social media or say, hey, listen, you can get it to the website. You can also find it on, I think that Justin does the Facebook page, but I still have shadow access to the town's website. So I'm in and out like Batman, and they never knew I was there. So we can do that tonight. I like the information about that, what we get address, we get what they do, business description, the address, you know, and that's basically it, contact information, things like that. the issue, and I've talked about this with to Reagan, but the issue with the data is it's not necessarily that we get the data, it's we get the data and putting it back online is what we have to do. So there is currently no mechanism online where we're capturing this info to take the info we have and to then display that info from what we're taking onto the website. What we have to do is we have to basically offload it, then re-enter it into, either the same format in a database, or we make just a sheet. So it's imperfect right now. All it really means is we would sit down, I could do this where it would just be basically an hour and a half of data entry to catch up. And then, ultimately it'll be easier for businesses to be subscribed, to add them later because they're coming in one at a time instead of having 50 of them at you. But the way that we would do this on the website is we would make a directory. And instead of people, it would be businesses. And that way everything is online. We capture the information, we go through it, make sure everything's all set, and then we load it back up. The reason I like that, just to make sure everybody's chill with that process. And the reason I like that is again, I'm sorry, I'm doing my Readfield hat, but I am involved there. In Readfield, we let people just add their own information and it would spit it onto the site. But what happened is there were a couple inappropriate businesses, and I'm going to say this, and I hope, please forgive me, but there was one business entered that was Indian Squaw was the name of the business. And that's not a business. That was not something we found appropriate. I was like, we have to get that out there. So there wasn't a lot of oversight into what was there. And we had to actually do a couple more because we found out that it was a little bit of spam. So having to download it and then re-upload it maybe gives us a level of protection from things like that happening. Yes, exactly right. And that's what we do. So that's the business directory. It would be alphabetical. It wouldn't be split up into, like auto parts and things like that. That's a separate, that's a different thing. And GovOffice doesn't really do that well. But it can be done, it can be uploaded, and a little information is better than nothing. The information that I have can be downloaded as a spreadsheet, so it can be shared over many platforms. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just in GovOffice, but it's the only thing that I found so far that works really well. If you use an outside party or something like that, I'm always a little wary of putting other people's information into an outside, like database.com. And, we make databases for your website. I hesitate that because they've given us their information and I don't like to share that. So long story short, with a little work, we can have more businesses be a part of it, and it can be online on the website.
Well, those other database companies could sell those lists to other.
Yeah, and I hate that. I hate that stuff. And not like do what you do, but people give us their info thinking for the town, it's going to be, oh, yeah, do it for the town. And then they start getting some kind of spam thing from Czechoslovakia. It's like, I'm sorry about that, Fox Small Engines, So, yeah, so that's it. So that's kind of where we are. And if you want, what I can do is I can put that right on the front page and we can start pushing that a little bit more as we get into the season.
Yes, and I'll say, so I'm a little disheartened because with the 8 entries, because, and again, I'm no marketing genius, but we did have this advertised at the June election. We had papers that business people could bring home and go to the website and fill out the form. And then I also asked Justin I asked him to do a couple of Facebook posts saying, hey, Monmouth business owners, go and fill this out. And I guess myself as a business owner, if I see an opportunity for free advertising, then I'm going to go and fill it out, especially something that I consider legit, like the municipality.
Right.
So maybe we just need to do a better job of marketing and pushing it in front and center. when I was talking to Lori in the town office, we were also kind of wondering if we should. I mean, when I first got here, I spent a month trying to figure out what businesses were actually in Monmouth and sending them letters and figuring out who was in calling and figuring out who was in business. So I have a list of 60 or 70 businesses, which I'm very confident are still operating in Monmouth. Would it be inappropriate to list those as Monmouth-based businesses on the website? Instead of trying to get people to opt in to fill out the form. The drawback of that is we had talked about it kind of also being kind of an annual entry so that, or maybe some sort of periodic entry so that people could still verify that they were in business and we didn't have businesses that were no longer in operation up on the website.
Yeah.
So there's two sides of it, maybe more complete, but maybe also less accurate if I do it myself, or, you know, having people opt in.
I feel like
And
you're
getting that
gonna have a
buy-in.
difficult time getting 70 people to volunteer, put their information out there for us to build this. It's like fire department business, you know, hey, guys, we're gonna do this. How many volunteers, you know, out of 50 people in the room? I get 5 hands that might go up, you know, but then if I reach out to them individually, now I got 20 people.
Yeah.
You gotta pull that information and try
I'd
to
say the accuracy is pretty important too.
Yeah.
You go there and defunct, am I gonna go there ever again or not?
Yeah.
Right, so maybe we'll try and, you know, push the advertising a little more and getting it.
It's
Oh,
right
it's
up
already
there
done it? Oh
now.
my
It's
God.
already up there. Batman.
I can say as a Monmouth business owner, I wasn't aware until like I looked at this website an hour before this meeting that I could enter my information.
Great,
Yay.
Okay.
Well,
Which I haven't done yet because I didn't feel like I had enough time,
well,
but at the same time, as a business owner, it doesn't seem like a lot to be like, oh, it's just like a once a year check-in thing or like submit this information. But when I have like this many things to do every day, it ends up like not being that important. So
Yeah.
like,
it's gonna have to be managed, I think, by in-house. It has to be a Monmouth managed thing. It's Monmouth started. I don't think it's up to the business owners to do it. I think what we have to do is we, you know, once a year or something like that, or over the course of a year, we call people up if they've registered, make sure they're still going. It's got to be a proactive thing like that. I think expecting it to fall on the hands of them to, like you said, to do more stuff. But I think it's so vital to have it. And in fact, I'm trying to see if I have done a thing where I think I might have started.
Some of that too is
Sorry,
about,
go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna suggest that some of that too is about reaching critical mass. So the hardest ones are the first ones, right? I mean, it's like if I go to a website and I only see 8 people participating, and I know there's an ocean of people that could potentially participate, then I'm thinking, do I really want to be number 9 out of 1,000? I
how
mean,
many
like,
different
I'm gonna
business
wait. and-
directories are there that have, yeah.
I'm gonna wait and see if, you know, more of the businesses get involved because it doesn't have much momentum to it.
Good.
But on the other hand, if you figure out a way to jumpstart it, then it gets its own momentum and people come to the business directory and they see 50 Monmouth businesses. They're like, dude, everyone else in Monmouth is there. I gotta do this.
Yep.
Because everyone else is doing it.
Can we just put the 70 that you've identified without their permission? I mean, they're a public,
I was gonna say, I don't see why not.
they're in the phone book, you know, the old phone book.
Yep, I mean,
They're on Google.
and I don't see why not and maybe, and look, that's why I was running, if we start with that and then maybe I do my annual outreach. You know, I would do it with like 10 a month or something like that, just calling them and checking in and.
And at the
Yeah,
end of
we
the
have your
conversation,
directory.
you say, do you want to continue? We have you listed down on the website. Do you want to continue with that?
Absolutely.
So can I show you? In fact, I did do something smart and it doesn't happen often. This is what it will come up and look like in the directory. So you can see it's by person's last name. And it's just it was just a test to see. So what would happen is this would be a person's business. And then we could display whatever we want about that business in this format, but it will be in alphabetical order by business name. So why don't I just go ahead and do that? I'm gonna do that for the first 8.
Yeah.
And then as we start to trickle in, that'll just be something that I pay attention to.
We'll start that way and see.
Does that
if
sound
we can
good?
get some more.
All in favor?
Got one more.
But I guess I gotta enter my information.
I was gonna say, we'll
Or are you
double
automatically
digits.
entering?
We've read your mind, Andy. Your information is in.
I mean, do you have contact information? Do you have emails for a lot of the businesses or it's just
No,
phone numbers?
no.
Yeah.
Phone numbers,
So obviously that would be the easiest thing.
and addresses, physical addresses, that didn't get mail returned to me. I tried.
Yeah.
That was quite a project.
Yeah, I bet.
It's lots of fun. And the number of people who, were kind of sole proprietors who, told me that they were kind of going out of business. It's an older guy who's just still kind of tinkering, but is definitely on his way towards retirement, was a decent number of people I spoke to. So
It's like small name.
yeah, it's scary.
Well,
So
there's a lot of people that fly under the radar, don't want to have their business advertised. They don't want to be solicited by, all your
right, that's true too.
people that want to sell you something or have you donate money.
So, great. Well, I think we have a plan with that. That will be good. And I asked Dennis this, I don't want to take up hardly any time on this, but I was wondering for people who do own businesses in the room, are you involved either with the
Oh, yeah.
Winthrop Area Chamber or the Kennebec Valley Chamber or both or neither?
Either.
We are a member, Capital City and the Friends, Capital City is a member of the Kennebec Valley Chamber. The Friends were a member of the Winthrop Chamber, but we're taking a pause from that relationship. So KVCC is, I think, the most active, viable option in the area.
Are you involved in either of the chambers? No.
No chambers.
Can you?
Not me.
I have no need to.
Yeah.
My business is totally different.
Yeah.
Same. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
kind of like,
No, absolutely. One of the reasons I do it is for shows, you know what I mean? For Capital City, it's about networking and being like, would you like a show at your Christmas party?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I absolutely agree. It's kind of 6 on one hand, but the networking stuff is probably the best. So if you're in a thing like the nonprofit Friends, we love it because that way we can be like, donate to our Apple Fest 5K race, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. So there's a couple, but yeah, you know what I mean? It's they drumming up business. It's like, go light something on fire and I'll be there. So yeah, I get you.
Just make sure you have insurance.
That's, please.
Good. All right.
Please.
Well, that was my informal survey for that. So,
Yeah.
perfect. And then the last thing we had on our agenda was the recommendation for the downtown facade improvement grant program. So trying to think of the best way to do this. I had some questions from our current application. We started having this conversation last in June. And if you'll recall, Monmouth has a facade improvement program for a kind of indescribable network of business. It's very confusing.
Fantastic.
It's
I love it.
confusing to me. I'll
Yes,
I'll
okay.
just say that the current application, I think, is pretty confusing in terms of where the focus is for this facade improvement program. And so before we start marketing this as one of the tools that Monmouth offers, I wanted to get your take on where we should be focusing. I guess that's the simplest way to put it. So I gave all of you a map of what your 2016 downtown improvement study has identified as your downtown. And I don't know if all of you have seen this or if this looks familiar or not familiar, but that's kind of what this study identified as Monmouth's downtown. Monmouth's downtown is difficult, along with a lot of other rural downtowns, because there's a lot of residential properties that are interspersed between commercial properties. So it's very hard to kind of quantify where it stops and where the concentration is, okay? So I don't know that you guys would necessarily be, if I plugged in my jump drive there, I don't know if you guys would be able to, would you be able to see the screen? There was just some areas of the, let's try, I might as well try.
There's a hub, Reagan, over there that has a few extra USB. Do you see that? And then it should still show up on that computer.
I will.
I know it's never the same way. Okay. So you have, so in the computer, yeah, there you go. Bam.
There we go, you'll see all of my. So, date modified. Okay. Okay. So everyone can see this okay? If I
Yep.
just
No, perfect.
because I highlighted some of the areas that I wanted feedback on. And I'm gonna bring my notes over here since I can't bring this over there and do this, so I'll bring my notes over here. And have all of you kind of provide me with some feedback about how we want this to,
Yeah. Maybe this is the first time they've done this. Yes, that's right.
so this is a 2017 version of your application for your facade improvement program, okay? And the way that you have it set up, I believe you allow, all right, we'll start here. So the objectives, can everyone read this, okay? Include encourage private investment in the visual improvements of storefront signs and awnings, enhance the appearance of the streetscape, reduce vacancies in storefronts and upper floors, expand worker and shopper populations, strengthen or restore the original character of historic buildings, provide a catalyst for others to improve their buildings, signs, and awnings, remove blight and improve the appearance of distressed buildings in the downtown area. And again, I'll back up a little bit just for people who may not be as familiar with facade improvement programs, but basically these are TIF revenues at work where Monmouth has created a program to help. Traditionally, it would be kind of commercial businesses improve the appearance of their storefronts, okay? Kind of sprucing up the area, making it seem like it's an economically viable area and creating a sense of place kind of type thing. So these are some of the objectives, and it's a grant. So usually it's the property owner, it's a 50-50 split up to a certain amount of money. So if they wanted to paint and get a new sign and put benches in front of their business or what have you, there would be a whole plan that would be presented to us for approval for this funding. So just a little background on that. So grant funds will not exceed $12,500 per applicant. So if someone wanted to do a 50-50 split of a project, we're looking at probably a $25,000 project or more that they would just have to come up with the difference of, okay? Now, the map I gave you, like I said, has a lot of residential properties in it. Basically, your rules for the current facade improvement grant starts with facade improvement grant may only be made to a commercial or mixed use property or commercial and residential in one building located in the area identified in the attached map. Please note that properties are eligible for grant funding regardless of occupancy. No resident big bold, no residential properties are eligible. Except residential properties in the immediate downtown area of the district identified by the Board of Selectmen as distressed eligible properties. So in one sentence, it says there are none, and then it says except for if the select board says that they're eligible.
They're in, right. Wow.
Additionally, and so then, at the beginning, it says.
Right.
Areas identified on the attached map. We have the map. Then the second part of this says, additionally, town-wide commercial applications may be allowed with a specific review and approval by the Board of Selectmen and the determination that the project advances economic development goals of the town. All of the conditions shall apply. So for me, this kind of puts two rules in place and then immediately says they don't apply.
Well, allows
So,
for significant exceptions.
yeah, so, so,
That's nice.
yeah, I find that confusing, and I'm hoping we might be able to clear that up a little bit in terms of either saying any business in Monmouth can apply, although we give preference to ones in this particular geographic area, and residences within this particular geographic area that are demonstrating a severe need that bring down the quality of the streetscape are also eligible. That's something like that. But this to me, or you can just say, we don't want to do either of those things and just have it commercial businesses in this defined map that we've shown you. So I needed some guidance from you and some feedback because I've never seen anything like this before. In any of the facade improvement programs I've seen, and not to say, I mean, every place is different. So,
Welcome to Monmouth.
yeah, and
God, Dan, I'm so glad you said that.
We do things a little
It's a
different.
special place here,
but
this little hamlet.
the one thing that strikes me a little bit is I'd say that the intent of a facade improvement program is to improve an area, like in my view, kind of like a distinct finite area, like this outlined map. The idea of businesses that aren't in that distinct area to be able to apply for facade improvement grants is, I'm having a little bit of a hard time wrapping my head around. But if that's the culture of Monmouth, and if you feel that that is an appropriate use of TIF revenues that, can benefit businesses that choose to do business in town, and you want that to be an advantage for businesses that choose to locate in Monmouth, regardless of whether or not they're in this little geographic area, I support you. But I just,
I think for the reason that a lot of this downtown is residential, you almost have to. I think of the greenhouse, just, a short distance up the road from here that could benefit from a facade grant if they needed it. I hate to just restrict us to such a small area that we can't really attract many businesses to, because geographically, we don't have the space for them.
I think I'm confused about the map. So for it to be TIF eligible, you just need a map? Is that what,
no, that
was more like a plan? Or
that was what this grant used as their to define their downtown area.
Okay,
And it's really nothing more than that in terms of being relevant to the TIF district.
Could it be broadened, like in the comprehensive plan, in the past plan, because the new plan someday maybe will be done. There is like a growth area outlined in the plan. I mean, could we expand it? I mean, that's roughly from basically Clemeto Farm to Route 202. And then, other arteries off of there. I mean, could we just broaden this area? Because it is true. It's like, this is,
I was gonna suggest the hydrant district, which
Yeah.
is exactly what you just said, from Clemeto to 202.
probably what the water district is. Yeah, but that's the hydrant.
The hydrant,
Right, yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes.
That's just what you guys call it. All right,
Correct.
got it. Okay.
Little plugs that are connected to the water.
Yeah.
But yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Are there any restrictions from the perspective of the State Economic Development Commission?
Well, I think that they are covered because they are focusing on commercial businesses and then residential businesses in a very defined downtown area. So I would say no, but I would certainly check once we had our definition. I'm not sure if anyone checked for this definition.
Don't know. Well, it would seem to me like, I was here in 2012 when this was put together. And I think it was probably changed in 2017 because there were some properties that were added in. And so I think they maybe adjusted some maps. And of course, back then in 2012 and 2013, the economy was in pretty rough shape and the downtown area had, I don't know, half a dozen vacant buildings
Pretty
and
blithe.
yeah, I mean, it was, we're still not completely recovered, but we are halfway there in terms of that area, in terms of abandoned or vacant buildings and buildings that are just beat up, poorly maintained. And so the feeling, the general consensus in town was, can we focus our economic development attention to this area? Because this is the worst of the worst. We seem to be through some of that. Not all of it. There's still 4 or 5 vacant buildings in downtown Monmouth. One of them was talking to a property owner the other day and she's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna tear that one down. Because it's got mold and it's not worth fixing and blah, blah, blah. So, there may still be some changes in the aftermath of the last economic
Don't tear down
downturn,
the old firehouse.
not the
I
firehouse.
know, it's the one next to it.
Yeah,
How
it's
many-
on the corner.
How many people, like how routinely is this program even used?
Not.
Like,
That's why.
has anyone ever applied for it?
So the,
Yeah.
so the entity that uses it annually is the museum, which is great. However, part of this would also be to kind of increase valuation of a property, and the museum is a not-for-profit entity. And while we appreciate them using it and keeping the museum up and looking nice, it would be great if other entities would use it that would help with one of the intents, which is to kind of increase property values.
Right.
So other businesses have used it, or is this just the museum?
There have been
Recent-
other ones. I know the bakery did something years ago, didn't they have,
Yeah.
what's his name, Paint, something like that?
Yeah, Jack Traps.
Jack
Yeah.
Traps did
Yeah.
something, which is not in the district, for example.
I mean, to me, it just, no, but like having it be that growth zone that was outlined in the comprehensive plan, and I think is going to, the draft that has been done so far on the new plan, it's basically the same area. I think we added a little bit of Academy Drive, or a road, whichever it is. But anyway, that would be my encouragement, is to broaden the area, because that is where a lot of the businesses
So
are.
essentially you're saying,
Have it match something.
find the footprint of where there's already infrastructure
Yeah, or,
for water and sewer.
right,
And
exactly.
say, okay, this is our area for development.
Well, that's what's gonna attract, a business coming into Monmouth that's gonna wanna be downtown, and from Clementos to 202, you're talking 4.5 mile strip where you've already got water and sewer for them to tie into. That's attractable, provide the lands there for them to bring their business.
I'm thinking of the future too, and I'm wondering if maybe we could. I like the precedent, I like setting the precedent that way, because we just got done talking about how do we justify an infrastructure investment in North Monmouth? And we don't have a business that wants to move to North Monmouth that would say, oh yeah, that's why we need to put the water main in. But they do have sewer service there, right? It goes all the way to pretty sure the sewer line goes all the way to the end of North Main Street.
I think that's right. Going back to comprehensive plan meetings past, yes.
Yeah, so, and it comes down New Street.
So should it just follow where the sewer district is?
Well, I would say sewer and water.
Yeah.
Right, if there's an existing sewer and water system, then that would fall within the map. Doesn't have to be both. Forgive me, I said it incorrectly. It should be sewer or water. Sewer or water.
All right, so we can broaden the area of focus for the facade improvement program to include kind of these growth ideas, growth areas that would have either water or sewer in them. Because you're right, that's where businesses will definitely tend to.
Gravitate towards.
Yeah, yeah, it's less expensive to get your business up and going. There's existing infrastructure already there.
So the other questions, just to nail down, I heard Dan say that it might not be a bad idea to be townwide with business facade improvements. Is everyone feeling that that's still something that makes sense? That a business could apply? Townwide commercial applications may be allowed with a specific review and approval by the Board of Selectmen. And a determination of project advances economic development goals of the town.
I think, yes, and you alluded to it earlier that, you know, we could always put language in there like we prefer, you know, or preference this downtown area, but certainly not close the door for other businesses, you know, townwide that want to improve their facade, you know, to attract their, you know, make their businesses attractive. So.
I'll draft it like that. We can do a final review. Next month. And then finally, the residential properties in the immediate downtown area. Are people still feeling that those should also be eligible? Maple to Academy is what was specifically stated in here.
It's sort of weird. It's like, you
you
don't want to exclude anyone, but then why have the district, right? No residential except.
You know, the other thing too is that we may be at a turning point in the residential real estate market, right? I mean, the one reason that no residential properties have applied is because at least in the recent years, is because there's been a lot of appreciation, there's been a lot of money put into residential properties because there's been a big boom in residential properties, and now that, you know, mortgage rates are starting to go up, and we may be at a turning point for residential properties, there might be some more pressure that we haven't seen in the past on, you know, how people maintain their residential properties.
But it's allowed you're allowed to update it as part of the TIF.
You could apply in
Residential.
from if you live within from on Route 132 between Maple Street and Academy Road,
But approved by the select.
and approved by the select board.
Have there been residential folks who have? Does anybody know?
I think there was
Yeah.
Maple House. What's the yellow house there across from the post office?
Yeah, it's Blossom House.
Blossom House.
But the TIF was used for the old postmaster's house. What's his name?
Man? No,
No,
man.
not before him,
Which is connected to the.
Yeah.
which is connected to Blossom House. Yes.
Right.
So it was like half done and then they said, wow, that looks nice, but what about this other half that somebody's currently living in?
Right.
Single family home.
Right.
And I think that's how
That's kind of how it happened.
Feel like if you expand this town-wide or something with the residential improvements and then there's actually any publicity about it, you're gonna see a lot of applications, because I mean.
Yeah, my gut says to just no residential, no residential,
Or I also just think
you know, it's
comprehensive,
like,
Actually, did the people in that house that crosses the stream, the one built above the stream, did they apply for facade? No, they just did that on their own.
We did that. It was a distressed house. I mean,
Yeah.
the roof was terrible, the porch was falling off.
Yeah.
It needed, and it, to make the downtown look decent. The people in the credit union building, the old credit.
Yeah,
Did it themselves.
They did it
didn't,
themselves.
they didn't use any
Okay.
TIF money, but the old postmaster there did.
right.
I
All right.
agree. I think keep it to just business.
Yeah,
That's what the TIF was.
be
designed.
consistent. And if you have to, you know, it's like, but it's like, well, you know, that's why we're here, right? We're re-examining some of the policies from the past that we felt like didn't. No residentials.
do a lot of other towns include residences? And okay, yeah, that's really
Yeah.
weird.
There's your answer.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's why.
We need that special.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah, oh, bless it.
There's a guy on Pleasant Street, just go up the street a little bit. And there's a place that's,
Burned up.
no, not that one, that.
Oh, across the street from it.
John Knowles, he's fixing, John Knowles is redoing the Frank Hauser house.
Yeah.
That was my first structure. Saved it. 10 years later, it's getting redone.
10 years, really? So across the street from there.
Across the street would be a distressed house, I think.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah. No, the one with the smokestack. and all that.
It's got everything.
Type A.
The outdoor
Honest one.
boiler that like gravitates smoke, you know, horizontally in all the neighborhoods. I've got several complaints on it.
Wow.
That would be, it would be nice if that could be. They could be helped if they wanted to.
So yeah.
I don't
let's get
know.
rid-
I'm in favor of, yeah, I think I'm in favor of taking residential out
All right, well, like I said, I'll draft it with it. You guys can think about it for,
for next
until
meeting.
we get to the next point. And then,
Awesome.
we can find- So,
Oh, while we are in the process of talking about this facade improvement stuff and we're drafting recommendation. We talked about in our previous meeting about including roofs as a facade improvement. Is that also part of our plan?
well,
Sonic.
so we can get down, that's next, I think. So
Okay.
this is just, again, the board of, more clarification about residential properties, which we decided that we're going to forego right now. Identified properties shall be eligible for the residential properties, including roof replacement, stairs, porches, and railings were permitted. That's what you had for your residential. And I'm making that point because when you get down to eligible activities, these are all pretty standard, I would say. And at the bottom, it says roofs are not eligible projects.
Yeah, so I would say if we've limited this to businesses only. That they would include roofs, that it would include a roof.
Agreed.
So this, that little highlight section, just delete it.
Okay, so. And when I've been looking at other facade programs, what I've seen, again, speaking to, what's allowable and what's not. I've seen that roofs that are visible roofs have been included in other facade improvement programs in Maine.
So a
From
flat-
my
flat roof
perspective,
would not-
a roof replacement is obviously a structural necessity,
Yeah.
just to maintain the structure of your building. But it may not necessarily be a facade improvement. So I think that's why they kind of do this visible roofs, so if it were a sloping roof and the shingles were peeling off or something like that. My thought is that would be eligible, but maybe not a flat roof. I don't know. I can get more clarification on that, but at the very least, I've seen visible roofs as included in facade improvement. So I'll get more information about that and let you know. I would,
Very visible.
so,
It's considered a business though.
It's a nonprofit. Is the museum a business?
Is it?
It
Yeah,
is.
it's a nonprofit, yeah.
the applicant still.
Yeah.
Must
At
not-
least two professional
Sonicom.
quotes for each specific work, package, defining services of a contractor, subcontractor. Do we feel that that's reasonable, at least two professional quotes?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I'm not having you guys go through the minutia because I'm just going to recommend it. I think it's reasonable and you can critique it at that point. Okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
I was just going to remove this because this talks about that this is a very competitive process. And that there might be more demand than available funds. Wouldn't that?
How do you get the highest score?
Who reviews the application?
This committee.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
And yeah, so there's this
Power.
whole scoring, which might not be a bad idea necessarily, so just maybe I'll look into it and see if that makes sense. To make sure that a project is within a certain point allowance to qualify it.
Yeah.
I'll have to look at it a little more closely though, just because objectivity is nice, being able to say, yes, you scored in this and this. Therefore, you're awarded or you don't qualify, not just a committee making a arbitrary decision. So this is the same map that you have.
So again, that map, when I use the Masonic Hall, falls outside that downtown map.
Okay,
You said in one of the previous meetings, they could still apply even though they're outside that map.
Under current,
Under the
yes.
current.
under the
For
current, they
commercial,
could,
Yeah,
if they're commercial, with the select board approval.
approval.
But,
And
but if, I mean, the Masonic Hall has water and sewer, so under a
right, so
new
if we're
map,
doing this new map, then that would
then
qualify in the.
Yeah.
in the
de
guidelines.
facto.
Okay, and I don't think was there anything else that I was looking for feedback on before I finally draft this? It's a long application.
Of the Masonic Brothers.
I think that was it. So I've gotten what I needed
Cool.
from you to draft this, and the plan is to have it to you to review prior to next month's meeting.
Now,
Yeah.
what about expanding that district,
Yes,
restricted to a certain size? Under the initial TIF.
nope, this has not, this is,
Remember
a-
you said something about 5?
yes, yes, you're absolutely right. That is for the actual TIF district.
Right.
This is a program that the town has created, that it kind of is putting its own rules around. This has nothing, it's a downtown district that we want to encourage development in, but it's not directly tied to the TIF boundaries. So we're fine.
Okay.
Okay, anything more on
That's it.
the
And my,
downtown facade improvement program?
Facade.
Salt?
Facade.
I don't think I,
The downtown facade.
oh, and I don't have an adjourn on here, so I don't, we probably.
I
can't
move to
adjourn.
adjourn.
No,
Any,
it's,
before any final questions or answers or comments?
We just need to select the next meeting.
I think we have it in, on October, whatever the
18th.
18th.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So we will see everyone on October 18th.
Um,
All those in favor of adjourning? Wait a minute.
wait, before you do that. I just want to point out, since this is the Economic Development Committee and you guys are connected and you know people, Compton Hall is coming up with a ton of stuff after starting, this weekend, they have the race. Then we're doing a number of different activities. There's a stand-up show happening. CumpstonHall.com has a bunch of stuff, but we have a number of different activities coming up that are going on at Compton. And the stand-up concert on the 8th is the first Compton Hall alcohol event.
Oh, my
Sign me
goodness.
So Kushnock Brewing is going to be coming and offering beer and wine service in the basement before and during intermission. So,
So the second half should be really.
oh, but it's gonna be wicked funny, guys. Wicked funny. But just so you know, just to sort of
How much
start.
revenue is it generating?
Well, it's not the idea behind the service of alcohol. They come and they make the money, they go away. So we
It's a
don't get
service.
that.
It's a
It is
service
a
to-
value
to
added to the
patrons.
event.
Right.
So that if people know that that's a possibility, they may come to the event to have that value added service. And so that's kind of the way we are looking at it in terms of revenue sharing. We're not interested in because we don't have to store anything. And that was kind of the model for Cumston. So in order to get this done, we had to do it right. And Kushnock has all the right pieces. So
They bring a pizza too.
no, man, I'm trying to get them to bring that mobile thing out there. And a Cumston Hall wedding next November. So I second the
November?
next November, next November.
Do you guys have social media?
Yes, Cumston Hall on Facebook, Friends of Cumston Halls on Facebook, and our website is cumstonhall.com.
Don't get him going.
Oh, buddy, I could talk your ear off.
You know,
Yeah.
easiest way to share things.
Absolutely. Yeah, go right there. There's all kinds of stuff. The cumstonhall.com has our calendar and things like that. And it's cumstonhall.com because cumstonhall.org is owned by a online casino place. I don't know. It's like Igor Grigovich from some like
Ukraine.
Eastern European. Yeah. So I was like,
All
well,
those in
so-
favor?
that's, oh yeah.
Move the
Yay.
question.
Oh, I don't
Okay.
vote. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Thank y'all very much. Yeah, we're doing stuff. We have a blood drive. We have a comedy show. We're gonna do an improvised musical on the 5th of November.